Okay, so today we're going deep on something uh, pretty fascinating. It's a concept I think a lot of people are curious about, even if they're not super familiar with, all the ins and outs of Latter-day Saint beliefs.
Definitely. It's something that gets to the heart of a lot of big questions, really.
Yeah, like where do we go after this life?
Exactly. And, what does that even look like?
Right. So the idea we're diving into today are the kingdoms of glory. And our source material for this deep dive is, well, it's straightforwardly titled The Kingdoms of Glory.
Nice and simple. Gets right to the point.
Yeah, no messing around.
Yeah.
So before we get too far, I think it's helpful to lay out the mission for this deep dive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what are we trying to figure out here?
Exactly. What are these kingdoms of glory? Why do they matter? And what's the Latter-day Saint Church's, particular emphasis on them?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So jumping right in, this text starts with a pretty bold statement. It says that God desires all of his children to live eternally with him and Jesus Christ in a glorious kingdom.
Right from the get-go, it really emphasizes this idea of God's love being universal.
Mm.
It's not limited to just a select few.
It's interesting, though, it says kingdoms, plural.
Ah, good catch. That's a key detail. See, in Latter-day Saint theology, there isn't just one single heaven. It's more nuanced than that.
Okay, so that's what these kingdoms of glory are, like different levels of heaven.
Precisely. It's one of the things that sets Latter-day Saint beliefs apart, this concept of tiered heavens. And what's really interesting is this text points out that the church focuses specifically on preparing people for celestial glory.
Celestial glory. So is that like the top tier?
Yep, you got it. The highest kingdom. And they even get more specific, focusing on the highest degree of exaltation within the celestial kingdom.
Okay, hold on. Now I have a bunch of questions.
We're
Like,
getting-
first off, what even is exaltation? And how are these kingdoms different from each other? What makes the celestial kingdom, so special?
Great questions. Let's try to tackle those one at a time. So, when we talk about exaltation in the celestial kingdom, we're talking about reaching your full potential. It's about becoming like God and experiencing this incredible joy and unity with Him. It's a pretty profound concept.
Yeah, no kidding. So are we talking about like getting our own planets to rule or something?
Well, it's not quite that literal, but the idea is that you inherit divine attributes. You continue to learn and progress eternally. It's not about stagnation.
Okay. I'm starting to get a picture of this.
Yeah.
But going back to the different kingdoms, is it like, how do I put this? Is it like we get sorted into these kingdoms based on, how we lived our lives?
That's an interesting way to put it. I think a better way to think about it, though, is that it's more about natural progression. Latter-day Saints believe we have agency, the ability to choose, and those choices shape who we become.
So we're essentially choosing the kind of relationship we want with God, and that determines which kingdom we're, well, I guess most comfortable in.
Exactly. It's not about God forcing us into a box. It's about us choosing what kind of eternal experience resonates with us.
Okay, that makes sense. But we've only really talked about the celestial kingdom. What about these other kingdoms? The text mentions terrestrial and telestial.
Right, so think of it like this. Each kingdom represents a different degree of God's presence and glory. Like dimmer switches, not an on-off situation. The terrestrial kingdom is often described as a place of peace, of beauty. It's where individuals who lived honorable lives but maybe didn't embrace, the fullness of the gospel reside.
And what about the telestial? Is that like, the bad place?
Not necessarily. The celestial kingdom is more for those who rejected the gospel but still lived good lives.
So there's still a level of, well, I guess, happiness there.
Each kingdom offers its own level of joy, but the fullness of that joy, the divine connection, that's reserved for the celestial kingdom.
So it really does come back to that idea of choosing our eternal destiny, right?
Exactly. And that's why Latter-day Saints put so much emphasis on learning, on progressing.
And on making choices that lead us closer to God.
Right. It's not about a final judgment, but a continuation of our journey towards Him.
Wow. It's a lot to think about. So to kind of sum up what we've learned in this deep dive, Latter-day Saints believe in these multiple kingdoms of glory, and their focus is on helping people achieve the highest level, the celestial kingdom and exaltation.
And that preparation starts now, in this life, with the choices we make every single day.
It's definitely a lot to ponder, and this deep dive has honestly opened up more questions than it's answered. But I guess that's the point, right? To keep searching, keep learning.
Absolutely. And to apply what we learn to our lives.
This whole idea of kingdoms representing different levels of closeness to God, what might that experience actually feel like? Like, what aspects of his presence would be most emphasized in each one? That's something for our listeners to really ponder.
Definitely a fascinating thought to leave them with.
Well, folks, I think that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. Be sure to join us next time as we, continue exploring these really intriguing concepts.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.
See you then.